On today's show, we're going to be speaking about all things women. What does it mean to be a woman in today's society? And what does Malaysia have to do to involve more women in leadership roles? Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. My name is Threya Vadilio. I'm going to be your host for today on a very special Wacana program in English for all of our international and English-speaking audiences. So today we're going to be speaking about women empowerment and decision makers. We're going to be speaking a little bit about the recent Malacca elections and speaking about women in power and women in history. So joining me today, we have Datin Paduka Chair Asma Ibrahim, thank you very much for joining us. Pejuang Women's Wing Chief. Izana Saleh, President of Girls for Girls, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Zaraya.
And we have Professor Dr. Saleha Yaqub, Professor of Philosophy of Arabic Grammar at IIUM. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you for joining us. So have you all met before, or is this your first time?
Historic stage.
First time.
Thank you so much for being here. So we're going to be speaking about women empowerment, which of course is a word or a statement that's been used so much, but it's because it's so important for us to have important leaders for women in today's society. And so we have an amazing panel today of women in leadership roles. But before we get into that, I'd actually like to start with the recent Malacca state elections, which just wrapped up last weekend. So we had a BN win, and I'd like to start off with you, Chair Asma. What is the significance of this outcome?
Well, if you ask me, in a nutshell, I would say that the whole exercise is really not necessary and can be avoided. To me, it's a futile exercise because as you know, it was already BN government ruling, and it's the same party that brings the whole thing down. And it took the whole people to go through an exercise that are putting risk to people's life with the COVID around, and also is causing unnecessary expenditure for the government, which also it means the people's money. There were reports saying that the election itself, they spent about 46 million, and you can imagine how many family we can feed with that 46 million. So at the end of the day, the result that we get is still the same. It's still the same government that is running the state.
There was a lot of talk earlier on about whoever wins the Malacca elections, they have a big chance at the general elections. So what does this actually mean?
I don't quite see that correlation because the turnout is also very low. So whether that is really representing what the people's wish for the government of the state.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add on to this, Professor Saleha?
I don't think, I agree with Datin Paduka Asma, because I think it's the election is no need actually, because you go back around to the same things, same candidates, right? So we are lose actually.
And
64 millions, right? It's
46 million was the figure mentioned or reported. I mean, well, somebody got to verify that. It can be more.
Yeah, it can be more. It's official, right?
Yeah. And like a lack of female representation as well in the elections.
Yeah.
I think if I may add, Zaraya, since the elections did happen, I mean, the money has been spent, and today we're speaking in hindsight, right? What we did see, though, is actually a lot more young faces that got elected. And I think we've been asking for, not just in Malacca, but in general, for Malaysia to demonstrate its faith to young leaders. And so, correct, maybe the elections was not necessary, and it was a struggle at the top that put everyone at risk, as you said, but it's already done. And the result, sort of like the silver lining I'd like to pick up from that incident, is that I see people closer to my age group representing the Dons And I hope that that can be emulated whenever the general election actually comes. More young people, hopefully more young women. We have so many great leaders, potential leaders, great caliber, and it's time for them to shine when the main election comes.
I mean, it's very interesting that you say this because, yes, I mean, there's a lot of new faces coming into politics at the moment, which is fantastic. How many of these new faces are you seeing are women?
There weren't that many that won. I'd say from BN side, we had a Putri UMNO lady, Dato Tira Abu Zahar, for Dun Rim. She won. And she was a candidate I was keeping an eye out for. She, for a long time, had a lot of young people were sort of supporting her. And I'm glad she's won for the reason that I've been wanting to see more young women up there. It's what we strive for in Girls for Girls International, specifically in the political arena, because in Malaysia we have a very low percentage of women.
Yeah. Do you think that the reason why we have such a low percentage is because women are afraid of joining politics, or is it that they are not given the space to have a voice?
Well, there are two. I break it into two main buckets. The first being a cultural issue here in this country. What's expected out of a woman here, young or old? There's certain expectations that inhibits our ability to move forward. We spoke about it briefly before we started the session. Second being a systemic issue, i.e. policies, how the political structures are built. How high can a woman go, either by the actual policy or by convention, right? For example, in this country, there is no law that says you can't have a female prime minister, but by precedents, by convention, you ask any Malaysian, when you say the word prime minister, do you imagine a woman or a man? By convention, we say men, right? So I'm hoping those glass ceilings will break sometime soon.
Do you see a shift happening?
Yeah, I think it is coming. It is coming, and of course, women has got a lot of constraint actually in participating themselves in the public domain. What more in politics? Because being in politics actually is very, very challenging, and without a conducive environment, many women will be shying away in that. But I think now the need for women's leadership is becoming stronger, and we are seeing more women coming forward, and we need support from women from the women's group as well as the men in the politics to do that. And in Parti Pejuang, actually, we talk about it, and the political leaders in Pejuang are going for it. Yes, they are supporting the 30% participations of women in the coming election. But as women's wing, I'm also preparing those women to be in that position, because we do not want them to be there just because they are women, but they must be capable women, and they must be with competency, and they must be people with a visionary who can lead the country. So we know we have many women that are capable, but they tend to be shy away because of the challenges that they have to face, especially in politics. Even I myself, I just recently involved in politics. I've set on purpose to be there. So I can see that the challenges are different. I see that women has penetrated the other sectors, the civil service, they are already there. I think slightly we are more than 30% there. And in corporate sector, slowly, yes, we'll be there. And of course, in the board, sitting on board of directors, we are still quite behind. As the last figure that I saw is about 17% by for public listed company. We only have about 17% women representation in companies board. That was 2020 statistic. So things are improving. More opportunities need to be given, and as people see the track record of women leaders everywhere else in the world, I think. The wave will come here, and that change will be coming.
I mean, I think that the whole COVID pandemic actually showed how amazing many of the female leaders that we have done in handling their own countries. But also, I mean, just looking into our own history, Professor Saleh, I know that you have a background in history of the Muslim Empire, and how many amazing female figures we have in Islam. And you know, if we tie in this understanding of culture here in Malaysia, if we really want to look back into our culture, we have so many figures to aspire to as women.
Yeah, we have so many figures in Islamic ages period. Actually, when we talk about the Muslim woman empowerment in the time of Basic period and the Umayyad, and also in the modern day, we have several names such as Fatima al-Fahri. Fatima al-Fahri, who built the University of Qayrawan, and you know how he struggled to have that kind of university. It's around the 800 AD, 800 AD, and then it's going to finish around 900. It's 30 years he built this one, and then you know how she struggled to build the building itself. She herself going to inland together to build together with the staff. How she struggled to get that one, and then yes, of course, she was inherited the power, what we call from his father, inherited from his father, and his sister also built the same mosque, but in the Andalus, you know.
And I'm half Spanish. So
Spanish.
For me, it's amazing to look back into Al-Andalus and look at how glorious the land was there.
And you know, the university itself produced a lot of Muslim scholars such as Ibn Khaldun.
Yes, exactly.
Ibn Khaldun, and then also produced almanacs from Jewites who write the poems in Arabic, but write in Hebrew.
Wow.
Yeah, produced by this kind of university. Built by the woman. And another figure I can give you is about how struggle they are. Siti Zubaydah, the wife of Harun al-Rashid. Until now, we call the true son of Siti Zubaydah from Iraq until Mecca to provide water for those Hajjis from the Iraq to the Mecca. The idea came from the Siti Zubaydah.
Wow.
And another one, we should not forget our origin. We have somebody from Champa before this, Siti Zubaydah also, but another Siti Zubaydah.
Okay.
We can have their names or their history from the Shair Siti Zubaydah.
Okay.
How she rescued her husband from the China kingdom, Raja Zainal Abidin, and we discuss herself as a guy, as a man. This is all mentioned in the Shair Siti Zubaydah. And I think we have to look at Shair Siti Zubaydah as a historical events and not as aesthetical anymore. This is the time we have to discover the origin of Malay, actually, based on that one.
Izana, I'd actually like to ask you because, growing up, I know your father is from Kelantan, your mother is from Penang.
Yes.
And, we live in a context of being Muslims in today's society. But have you ever felt that Islam was putting you down or oppressing you or anything like that?
Not at all. The way we're raised in our household, from both cultures, are actually very empowering of women, especially the Kelantanese culture. So firstly, the religion is what we understand is an individual journey between, and also what is a relationship between you and Allah, right? And the culture is about family and how do you move towards your best potential. So I think one of the strongest Kelantanese, how would I say, what we inherited is the strong sense of women empowerment in our household. And that you can see it across generations, whether it's my mom's generation, even though she's the Penangite in the family, just the environment and what we talk about at the dinner table or how they've raised us. And I can see it with my nieces as well, a group of very strong women in the family. And a lot of it is because Growing up, my father always said, "You can do better. You deserve to be at that table, and if you are not, work hard until you get there." So it was never a case of, "Oh, you belong in the kitchen," or I mean, of course, you got to learn how to cook to survive, right? We all have to eat.
Yeah.
But it's not that is your place. Your place is worldwide. Your place is at the top. You must be top 3 all the time, if not number 1. My dad's always in pursuit of excellence. And we always believe in achieving our best. And, you know, when we were kids, he used to bring us back to Kelantan and go and see the market, see how the women manage the economy, learn how to... It was highly influential in a young girl's life. And I hear myself repeating the same things he was telling me when I was younger today with our mentees, for example.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I'm going to continue on with this topic right after the break, speaking a little bit more about women in power, what it means to be a female role model, and what the importance is of being a female role model. We'll see you back after the break. Welcome back to the show. So we are going to be speaking a little bit about women in power. And what does that mean? What does it mean to see women in leadership roles? And how do we encourage more women to join that force of strong, empowered women? So I'd like to ask you, Chair Asma, when it comes to female role models nowadays, what do you think we need to do as women to emanate that?
Okay. First, I think I want to go back one step. When you say about women's leadership, I think we have to understand this, that when you look at the population, 50% of the population are represented by women. And you must not forget that these 50% of the women are the ones who nurture and educate the other half of the population, because no man can claim that they are not raised by women in their life. Okay, so that is why I think we cannot undermine the strength and the leadership of women, whether we participate in an official public domain leading or not. We are already leading in a family, and that family makes the whole society. So women must have that confidence, must realize that actually they are already leading. So we need to raise the bar by bringing that level to the wider spectrum of public domain. And today, with the kind of education that our women are receiving, I believe that we are equally good to be in the leadership role to lead the country. Because in terms of choosing a leader, I think it is not about the gender itself, but it is also about the capability of the leaders and the trustworthiness of the leaders that we want to put forward. So I see that today's women has got all those qualities, so why not give them that opportunity to lead?
Do you think that it's the women just don't have the assertiveness to take on those roles, or is it intimidation?
Okay, first we must realize that men and women are created differently for different purpose. So we have to have a clear understanding that we have different role and different responsibility as compared to men. And this different role and responsibility is meant for us to complement those roles. We are not here to compete with men or to get rid of them in the leadership, but we are here to complement. So for every woman that want to come and lead in the public domain, I think we must first have to understand what is our primary role, what is the purpose of, what are the primary responsibility. So we then got to equip ourselves with all the skills to manage these different roles and responsibility. For example, in a family, normally we see that a wife has got certain roles where she decides on certain things, and the husband has got certain roles where he decides on certain things. And when it comes to children, they both got to come together and come to a consolidation as what they want their children to be, what they want, how they want to decide for the children's future, and so on. So similarly, when men and women come in a leadership in a public domain, I see that this complementing role are also applicable. So therefore, I think we do not want to compete with the men in areas that we are not. I mean, it's not suitable for us. Biologically, also, you see that when God created us, the women's anatomy is carrying certain features to suit our roles. For example, I've heard a gynecology explaining that, you look at the arm of the woman, there's a slight curve here so that when we hold a baby, it's comfortable sitting in our arm here. So you see that sometimes the men hold the baby, they're very stiff. That is because of the body anatomy. So if we respect that, so we know that there are certain roles that suit us, and there are certain roles that we need the man to take a lead, and there are certain roles that we women can take a lead. If we can understand that complementary role, I think there shouldn't be an issue of arguing about whose rights of doing what.
No, it's true. And Nizan, I wanted to actually ask you this, is that often when I see women in leadership roles, there's this misconception that we need to become like men. And we need to become men to fit into that role. But actually, there is a power within women which is completely different, but just as powerful.
And also, if I can add one more thing, normally women's leaders are being judged based on the masculine characteristics. So that is not right, because we need to be judged based on the what are the extra things that we do, and we have to have our own skills. Because if you judge the women leaders based on the masculine standards, then that actually deprive us from really performing. And people tend to have a stereotype and saying that women is, when you see women leaders, they will always say that, well, either she is too soft or maybe too hard and never good enough. But and also when a women leader excels, then people will tend to say that, that is isolated cases, she must be special to be there. But in a case where a women leader made a mistake, then they say, this is the kind of women leaders that, generalize to all.
I'll come back to you in a moment. Zana, do you have anything to say in that regard as well about being in a leadership role yourself as a woman?
I think there's a lot of assets that we bring being women. And I think we should embrace women who are strong, loud, assertive. But we should also embrace women who are quiet, reserved, steel magnolias. And likewise with men. Not all men are always screaming and stomping the rostrum, right? You also have quiet men working behind the scenes, leading an entire group of followers. So I think what we should actually be focusing on is looking for leaders who are courageous. Values and virtues that are not pegged to gender, for example. When we run our mentorship sessions, we bring in all sorts of leaders for our young ones to see that there's actually a plethora of leaders out there. You have the loud, your the kind who really riles up the crowd. And you also have some who are quiet and stable. And there are many types of leaders for different environments, men or women, and also different times in a nation's timeline, right? I think that's what we should be focusing on, ensuring that our leaders have the right values, that they are trustworthy, that they are courageous. It takes a different level of faith and ability to be able to speak up about what's right and wrong. And in today's day and age, especially in today's climate, we want to see more of that.
So what are the values that you put on yourself then as a female leader that you use to be a model?
You know, I'll answer that question specifically about female leadership, but then I will
Okay.
I have another statement to make. I think when it comes to women leaders, because of the environment, the inequitable and unbalanced environment we're in, all the women leaders on this stage, we need to walk the talk. We need to be the kind of leaders that either we didn't have when we were younger or what we think the community needs today, right? We need to walk the talk, how we dress, how we speak, how we work. Because not just right now when we're speaking on stage, but when we leave the stage, our team is observing how we work. And they will then emulate the same values and virtues. And they will then influence their own team members, right? That's my belief. You got to walk the talk. I am a firm believer of leaders also rolling up their sleeves and doing the work. But having said that, I think when you asked me what is the value and virtue I see as a female leader, for a second that my brain jammed because I don't see myself as a female leader. I see myself as just someone leading. I want to move a little bit away from having the gender in front of the leadership. And the idea behind that is to normalize that actually when you say leader, you should be imagining male and female. More often we put female leadership, the harder it gets to move away from that that nuance that actually this is a special case. I want it to become the norm that when you say leader, you imagine either a man or a woman, or both, right? Because right now we're still in the space where we say we have to mention female leadership because it's so rare. 1, 2, 3 single digits. Our percentage in parliament and cabinet still pittance. It's in the low teens, for example. And as a young person, citizen in this country, I am demanding for more of our leaders out there, male or female. If you're a man in this ecosystem, it is your moral responsibility to ensure that the women who have the merit and the credibility and the capability, they should rise because you want those who can lead, regardless of gender. And at the same time, the women out there who have the capabilities, who have the opportunity, who have the support system to raise their hand and step forward. The country needs you badly.
Very true. I mean, Professor Soleha, you work with students at IUM all the time. So do you see a lot of young female women coming and stepping forward?
Yeah, but if you ask me about the empowerment of women and how they're making decisions, I think we, as a Muslim, we should go to the ayah Surah Al-Nisa, ayah verses 34. Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa. What does it mean? This is the meaning of how the word of qawwamun means in Arabic grammar we call this is ala wazan fa'alun. Qawwamun fa'alun. This is a rhythm. This is a wazan in Arabic study. How to analyze the Quran, as mentioned by the Tafsir Tantawi and Tafsir Ash-Sha'rawi, the meaning of Qawamun means men become a guardians. Men becomes to protect the woman, to provide the shelter, provide the clothes, and provide everything for the woman for the safety. It doesn't mean Qawamun here is control, become more powerful than women. No. The word qawamun here, if we know very well about the exegesis of the Quran, the word qawamun actually is meant to provide us the shelter, the clothes, and so on, not to control us. What I mean is here, woman has been pampered about these things. Means woman become a queen. But what I'm going to say here is, to produce a good leadership among a woman, we should have a good education. Good education will come after you have been provided something. You have been consoled by somebody else. provided by somebody else of the educations from your father, from your husband, from your brother. You must have support, strong support for them.
I mean, I feel like in Malaysia there is a very big balance between the education that women and men get. And in fact, here in Malaysia, I mean, we see so many doctors, engineers, I mean, women in these very big, prominent positions, which you don't actually see that much anymore in the West. So there is, I feel like the education definitely is here. It's just that taking the step forward into being that in those leadership positions. I don't know if that's just from an education perspective of not being encouraged enough, or where.
No. The education actually provides you a good thinking, a good thinker, a good brain, and after you get this, you can be a good leader. Without a good education, you cannot be a good leader. But let's say our society in 60 centuries, in 60s, let's say, or 50s. They don't have a good education, but they have something. They learn from their society how to be good educators, like our mothers before, right? But nowadays, we have a system. To be a good educators and be a good leaders, I think the educations must be the number one. Must be, we can put the high place to be to train our girls and women.
Well, I mean, speaking about education, I wanted to come back to something we were speaking about just before we started this, was about that education is actually not just happening in the schools, but it actually happens in the family environment as well. And I know you work with orphans, orphan care, and seeing how the dynamic of orphans just growing up in institutions actually differs from children that have been nurtured in a family environment. So education kind of goes beyond just the institution or the school. Do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah. First, coming back on education, I think the challenges that we are talking here is that if you look at statistic of Malaysian women having equal opportunity in education, in fact, they excel more than men. So if you look at the number of women at the higher institutions, there are a higher percentage than men.
Amazing.
But eventually, when you look at their position in higher levels, in the management and above levels, then it drops.
Why?
So that is the gap. Yes, we did have a forum before this to discuss, I mean, among the women leaders, what actually happened in between that make them drop out. It goes back to their ability to cope up with their family and office life. So it has always been that balance and that feeling of guilt, of going out to work and neglecting the family. That has been the thing that is bothering the women. And I think this is where intervention, like having a proper support systems, a proper childcare center to support these women is very important. I was the director for, before I was with Orphan Care, I was leading one of the government department as a director of DOE Selangor. I have 150 staffs under me, and they are a mix of men and women. So I understand that, if you have, for those women staff, if they have peace of mind on their children when they are well taken care, so they can excel. They will be more productive. So if we can provide this kind of support that settle their worries, so they can actually provide a better balance in their life, and they will be there climbing the ladder. Because otherwise you will always see this gap, that they are well educated, but in coming to climbing the career ladder, they are not there. So this is the kind of I know you want to talk a bit on the orphan care.
Yeah, there's so many things I want to ask you. My gosh, but I actually want to just tangent off from that, because yes, there is this thing of women not being able to balance family and then a career. But what we're seeing a lot in the West, for example, is that women are now actually choosing to put aside motherhood altogether and fully focusing on a career. So how do we strike that balance? Because both
Yeah.
don't work in the favor of society. So how do you strike that balance, actually?
Yeah, well, I'm talking from my experience. I have 28 years experience as a working full-timer staff. So I have 6 children.
My goodness.
And I have 13 grandchildren. Okay.
Alhamdulillah, wow.
So I'm still active in public, in society, active in NGOs and so on. So that is a real challenge there, how to balance your family and your career, as well as your contribution as a social activist. Basically, first, women must have confidence on how they manage. You must know how you manage your time. You must know your own strength and what are your capability and what are your weaknesses. So you must understand yourself and you must understand what you want to achieve. If you can organize yourself, then you can organize your family and you can organize your work. So that should be a good way of achieving the balance. And also we must remember that when you talk about work-life balance, it's not about dividing your time 50% here, 50% there. It is actually about what is your priority at that time. What is your priority and how you want to devote to certain things at that particular time. And this balance will have to be shifted as you go along. And at different phases of your life, you will have a different point of balancing point. For example, now I don't have small children that is crying over they have to take care. So my balance now is different from my daughters who are actually at the stage of building their career as well as building their family. So this kind of understanding we have to be clear on the purpose. And also the support of the family is very important.
Yes.
The husband must know that this is the responsibility that the wife is carrying. So the support from the husband is also important to make sure that women can excel and exceed in their career.
Complementing
each other, yes.
Yeah. Izana, so yourself coming from all of these, I mean, you're doing this Girls for Girls, and I know that you are handling so many young women as well. How do you find that balance, and what do you think is important? I did ask you this earlier.
Yeah.
What are your...
So actually, I want to add on a little bit to the conversation you had with Datian earlier. You asked the question, why is it? Why are women leaving? And it's they're leaving between the ages of 27 and 32 because that's the child-rearing years. And to tie back to what I said earlier in the session, there's 2 reasons why we're not seeing more women in leadership. One is systems, i.e. we don't have systems in the workforce to support women, i.e. Help, making it easy to find help at home. Nurseries, it should be mandatory to get building licenses, for example, things like that. Because women do need support once they have had the child to re-enter the workforce. I sit on the board of Talent Corp, and one of our main initiatives is a career comeback program. I'm also an advisory member of Lean In Malaysia. They also do a career comeback program. And the reason is because women have stepped back to care for the next generation. They have birthed the next generation of this country, and the leaders in charge are not supplementing that with enough support. They didn't go off just to, have fun, la-di-da. They went and they birthed the next generation that we need to continue populating this nation. We should be supporting them. That's number 1. That's systems. But number 2, when it comes to culture, I'd like to probably push the envelope here a little bit, and I hope the ladies at the stage don't mind me. But I'm looking for the conversation where we also ask men to be equal partners. We talk about a woman needs to know how to manage her time and her responsibility at work and at home and cradling the child. But what are we expecting out of the men? It is so often that we allow men to just focus on being the breadwinner at home. But the woman today, in 2021, they're expected to be in Kuala Lumpur. If you don't have a double income household, you will end up. I saw recent rates 9,000 plus. You're considered for a household income. You're considered B40. If you don't have a double income household, it's very hard to manage in cities, right? So women today have a double burden syndrome of having to be also a breadwinner, but also caring for the next generation. That's why they're going through so much burnout. We saw the rates of women having burnout during COVID tripling. I can't remember the exact numbers, but not only did they have to manage workload, they had to manage the home, they also had to manage online schooling. how unfair are we being to our women? I'm not saying this is the entire case. I have seen many men stepping up and being equal partners at home. But what I'm saying is, I think that we need to normalize that conversation. Normalize when you see men taking care of the kids, it's not, wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is great. You have an equal partnership at home. It's culture is so much stronger than systems, let me tell you that. Because what we say, what we positively reinforce or negatively reinforce really cultivates how the country can or cannot become a first-class nation. And as a Malaysian, I know I'm not alone in this journey, I am dying to see our country being the top again. And for me, it starts with culture. Culture at home. What do our moms say? What do our aunts say? How do we grow up? What are you encouraging? What are you discouraging? For both the men and the women. It's an equality conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic what you said. And we're going to continue with that right after the break, speaking a little bit more about what kind of role models we're really looking for in women and how we should actually be, how we should all be role models to educate the next generation. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. So we're going to be speaking a little bit more about historical women and what it is to be a female role model and how all of us can emanate it, because this is not just about speaking about it, but it's also about being it and actively contributing to it. So I'm going to come back to you, to Asma. When it comes to female role models, so much of it starts in the home as well. And you were speaking earlier on about collaboration. So in what ways can we facilitate that collaboration to happen more?
Okay, as I said just now, if we look at the family model, how we work in a family, there are areas where the wife is fully empowered to decide. For example, it relates to what other thing you want to buy in your kitchen and so on. So that is the kind of empowerment that we give to the women. And then the man will decide on other things, like, for example, if you have your car that needs to be fixed and so on, I think the man is better at that. So let him decide that. But when you talk about raising your children, so then you come together and we discuss together. So if you look at that, so we also look in an organizations where you know the strength of the women, what they are good at, and then they will then, be empowered to look at that, and surely they will do their best there as well as the men. And there are things where you need to come together to have the views of both men and women, because the diversity of men and women actually will create a better result. So I always feel that women's voice need to be represented in every decision making that the government is doing. I'll give you an example. Let's say the government is working about how to design a public transport system. Well, normally most of the people involved in this are men, because there are many engineers there who design the rail system, the train system, and so on. But you need women to participate in that decision, because you must know how women travel. If you just leave it to the men, they will be thinking that, okay, as a man, we just carry our bag, we can go up the stairs and take the train and go. But how about those women that need to take their children to the clinics and they need to have a pushchair, to go up the stairs and so on. So without the input from women, we will not have a proper sustainable transport system design that is catered for the whole society. And you must remember that 50% of our society are women. So our voice need to be heard to all decision and policy making decision, so that the society are represented. So that is just an example. So that is why women's voice need to be heard. And I think for those women that are already having that voice, please keep to it and please speak on behalf of the women that are not represented there.
I think that's so important that you say this about the collaboration, about having the conversation, about allowing women to come in and have their ideas and input. And it's like a tango between two people, and again, it's this idea that we are not just pushing for women empowerment, actually it's about that collaboration between man and women and finding the strength and the balances between them. And you were saying earlier, this is even a conversation that we should be having before getting married.
Absolutely. I mean, what Datin was speaking about was diversity and inclusion. This is why all organizations, and I hope the same to follow in ministries, focus on ensuring they meet the diversity and inclusion index, precisely because having different opinions on the decision-making table makes the world much more sustainable. But jumping to what you said, conversations about what we spoke about before the break, is about roles, responsibilities, expectations, is something that maybe couples who aren't married yet in today's day and age should have. What are your true expectations of me? Are you expecting me to be someone who's staying at home all the time and cooking for the kids, or are you supportive of my career for me to fly high to my full potential? A long time ago, I ran a program that taught grassroots political women multiple languages with the hope of fostering closer racial harmony. And I remember there was a lady who was in one of my classes. I didn't teach, I coordinated, but she was in the Mandarin class. And she was such an amazing student. Wow, Datin, Prof, she picked up the language like that. She has the ability. And I would say she was a top performing lady in the class. Outside, she was just an HR officer, HR exec actually, and but she had the skills and she had the capabilities to become so much more. And unfortunately, I remember she quit before we could push her to the next level, and the reason was because she took that one night a week away from home to come and better her skills, because and that did not sit well with her spouse. So what needed to be unpacked there? One was the expectations. Can the woman, fulfill her true potential? She had the skills, amazing. Not everybody is born with that. Number two, was the man being a true partner? Again, I reiterate, there are many men who are, but we need to normalize this culture. In today's day and age, we must progress a little bit. If that is a culture, very traditional balance that suits that couple, fine, so be it. But what we're talking about are for couples, families who have progressed, who want equality, who don't want the woman to hold the double burden syndrome anymore, who want to share that weight so that they can both rise to become towards their full potential and be exemplary parents to their children. This is what you can achieve.
Yeah, Professor Saleh, I wanted to talk a little bit about Islamic history now, because this is, especially in this regard, something that I've been very interested in, which is understanding the marketplaces in Islam and knowing that the marketplaces, the center of economy, have always been run by women. And actually, most of the entrepreneurs have been women. And even during this pandemic, when we've seen so many people lose their jobs, it has been women that have risen to the occasion of starting home businesses. The majority of them have all been women. So there is this innate nature of women to contribute to society. And this also is evident from our own Islamic history. So do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, actually, in the time of Medina period, well, the 10 years Rasulullah SAW in Medina, they built the shopping complex. I mean the souk they call in Arabic, the souk. And one day, the wife of the Prophet went to the shopping, and then the Omar objected them, don't go. Don't go to the shopping because you are the wife of the Prophet. You have to be at home. But one of the wife told to the Rasulullah SAW and then said, Omar objected us to go to outside. And what Rasulullah said that, no, you have to go outside, buy your needs. Means from this story, we know that Islam allow women to go to outside and do the things and activities. And at the time Omar became a Khalifa, he appointed Shifa binti Abdullah as a muhasiba. The muhasiba means a superintendent. To check the markets, the goods comes and out, right? And then in Mecca, they appointed Samra, a Nuhak, from the Bani clan of Bani Abbas to be a superintendent too in the markets for keeping goods out and in, And then we know that Khadijah Khuwailid, one of the big business women,
of course,
at that time, and then Islam is an economic strength in economic based on a woman empowerment.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you have good in wealth, people will listen to you.
Exactly. I mean, it's incredible actually to understand that women were completely independent because they were actually the ones that ran the marketplaces. And if you looked into the marketplaces, it was predominantly women, and the men were off fighting with each other and running the caravans and traveling, but it was actually the women that upheld society and upheld the economy.
But Zoraya, I just want to add some more. But before we grow out or train our girls outside and become do activities outside, I think what we have to do is train them to recite Quran, to know what inside of the Quran. In Islamic history, like Fatima al-Fihri, how her father, her grandfather, teach her to be in good education. Fatima Fihri hafiz Quran. Fatima Fihri also good in fiqh and sharia. She good in Arabic language. She know how to recite well in Quran. And then I think in our society we have to teach our girls and boys concentrate on the Quran first, knowing hadith, how the Rasulullah practiced in life, in his life, and then concentrate on fiqh shar'i. This is fiqh shar'i is very important because we know what is good and what is bad. Because as a human being, we have to protect ourselves by using the scriptures and Quran.
I mean, I think it is important, definitely, of course, to understand the Quran, to read the Sunnah, but it's also interpreting it for modern day understanding and context, because often when we speak about Islam, it's like, oh, this very archaic way of living, which is something that we need to kind of change by being role models and actually emanating what it is to be a Muslim, because our actions will speak louder than saying
to
it.
me, being a role models, you must good in scriptures. Either you are Muslim or non-Muslim. In non-Muslim also they have scriptures, right? All the scriptures mentions do a good things. But if you are away from there, I believe the generation will come not a good generation, it's a bad. And because they cannot differentiate between harm and unharmful.
Yeah, it's a big education that actually needs to happen in all regards. But I think, again, what's important to take out is that we have the potential to be leaders, and it is important for us to get educated. Because yes, I mean, we are seeing in society nowadays, there are a lot of holes that can be filled, and actually what's stopping women from filling those holes. So to kind of finish off and just wrap up, I know we weren't even able to speak about the orphanages, which we wanted to talk about, but time is running out. What is it for you to be a woman today in society, and what do you think it takes for us to be able to lead that next generation and give them a sense of encouragement and hope to fill these leadership roles?
Okay, first I think women will first have to know themselves what exactly they want in life. They must be empowered with knowledge to the extent that they can make the right decision for themselves, for the family, for the society, and for the nation. Here, what I'm saying is that once they know what are their capabilities and what they can do, they have to build the confidence, and they can decide on their own. Even, you see, if they feel that they then determine their own priority. If they feel that they want to stay at home and focus on their children, so be it, because that is their decision. So we should not force them out, because that is their choice. And the empowerment we are talking about is to empower them with knowledge so that they can make decisions on their own. Then for those who feels that they can do multitasking, definitely women can do better multitasking compared to men, but there are women who are not so good at multitasking. But if they think that they can multitask, they can do other things as well, so go ahead. And the society, the policy should support them to be in public domain so that we can unleash their potential, and they should be leading the country. And also, most important thing is that when women are there, they must also represent the other women who choose not to be out there. They must be able to speak to themselves. Then only they will be looked up as a role model of women's leadership. That's all I have to say.
I want to ask, who were your female role models when you were growing up, actually?
Well, I think if we look, there are many role models. Of course, from Islamic perspective, we have all the Sahabiah, which are also good, showing very good role models, as well as in the contemporary world. Now today, I think we can see many women leaders are showing good examples. One of it is Angela Merkel, which I think she is a very humble person. She lives a normal life, and yet she's controlling a country, Germany, as a German chancellor, which is a very challenging position. And we have Jacinda Ardern as the New Zealand Prime Minister that is representing a younger woman who's leading the country. And also in our country, we have several women leaders that we can look at. We have Tan Sri Rafida, who is very vocal, very sharp, and I have worked under her before when she was a MITI minister, and she is a no-nonsense person. And also we have people, women's represented in many fields, like we have Prof. Datuk Adibah in medicine, and we have Tan Sri Jamila, who is also leading in medicine as well as in humanitarian. So there are many examples of women leaders that we can look up, and we have Tan Sri Zeti, which actually in the financial industries that people are also respecting her leadership. So there's a lot of examples, but the role model that suits different segment of women, I think we need to see more, especially those that can show balance in their family life as well as their work life.
Well, Zana, I'm going to finish off with you because you work with a lot of young women, and what would you like to see happen? What do you think needs to change to empower these women and to give them a sense of encouragement that they can fill in these roles, and that actually women have so much to bring to the table? What would you say and contribute to that?
I'd ask for the young women to dig deep and find that courageous leadership they have. It's within them. It just sometimes takes a little bit of digging and reflection and conversations. I think it's really important for us to have the courage, quiet or not, because that's actually what will move the needle. The courage, or some people might say the audacity, to believe that they could lead the country one day. I remember I ran this one session 2 years ago. There was this young girl in my class, she's 16, and I said, what are your goals? We always start with a baseline understanding of their confidence level and their goals. And at the end of it, I asked them, I said, so what are your goals as you step back into the real world? It's like, my dream, 16-year-old, my dream is to be the first female Prime Minister of Malaysia. And I was beaming with pride because that young girl believed in herself. She said it with great confidence. Her eyes didn't flutter, neither did her voice. And I drew inspiration from her strength and her courage to verbalize her wish. And she's working hard towards, getting down, understanding. You gotta put your head down and do the work. But she found that courage initially. So I'm not saying everybody needs to have the Prime Minister dream, but find that courage within, no matter where you are, what kind of school, environment, family, education. Find that courage within, believe in your potential, and make that change.
Fantastic. Well, I think you've ended it beautifully with that. Find your courage and find your potential. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today, speaking a little bit about women in power. The conversation can go on forever. There are so many different things that we can talk about here, but this is just a small little taste of what the amazing women leadership of Malaysia has to offer. We hope to see you again on the next program. My name is Thuraya. Thank you so much, Datin Cik Asma. Thank you so much, Izana. Thank you so much, Professor Saleha. And we'll see you all very soon for another special edition of Wacana. Assalamualaikum, everyone.